Alright, shalom, 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 my family again. It's your brother Lidj, Yefdi, Yohannis, Wolde, Immanuel, coming to you again in a second sequence in the last video I posted, speaking on the works of the Valley of the Dry Bones by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor. And I have to correct myself for the page links that I actually gave you in that one. The pages that you actually really want to focus on are not 120 to whatever I might have said there, but the pages are actually 129 actually to, let's say, page 141, where Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor really goes into the things that might actually take place within either the coming year or the coming years ahead. So it's definitely a message for ones and ones to watch and pray and really pay attention and really align yourselves in the best way possible, for the coming things to come ahead. But the section that actually starts on page 129, and 129 I'm actually looking on the works in the PDF, the free shareware document, for the pages set within the document, not the pages that might be set on the PDF. On the PDF, you might be looking at page 28 out of 90. So it's 90 pages on the PDF, but the pages actually extend more than that. And like I said, the pages are not chronologically put together throughout the entire document, but they do have a sequential order. You'll just have to kind of skim through it to find the exact pages that you want at a certain time once you've gone through a certain section of reading it. But the page that I actually want to go to is page 129, and the title sequence for that chapter is actually World War III and its Secret Cause. So here I'll just read a little bit for you, just so you can kind of get a gist of what I was speaking on in that last video. And it says here, World War III will take place in the Middle East. On the human level of understanding, most people believe that the cause of this war will concern the control of oil fields. Now I want you to kind of pay attention to that, because not only will the countries I mentioned in the last video involving many of the Arab rich oil countries, but you also want to factor in Yemen and the outrageous civil war that's going on there with the Houthis, what they would call the Houthis. So definitely take a look and do some research on the Houthis and the regime there in Yemen as well. But continuing on here, but there is a divine hidden reason for the cause of this war, of which many people throughout the world are not aware. In this topic, I, speaking of Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor, shall enumerate various scriptural prophecies to support my position. For more than 30 years, there has been constant warfare and intermittent terroristic acts between the Arabs and the Jewish state. The Middle East will be a boiling pot of conflict for many years to come. Now, just take a moment and think about that, brothers and sisters. What have we been really seeing going on throughout the entire Middle Eastern region, or just over the past couple of years? Now, let's not even, amass what's been going on for the past 5 to 10 years or so, but just the past couple of years. We've had Syria, we've had Yemen, there's been Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and also the existing or so threat to the state of Israel, which Benjamin Netanyahu and many of the Israelis speak of with Iran. We've had Iraq, Afghanistan. Need I go on about what's been going on in the Middle East? But just to continue, the Middle East, no, hold on just a second. Let me get myself readjusted here. Yeah, right here. There existed an Israelite nation in Palestine in about 1200 BC up to AD 70 AD, a very, very conclusive and very extensive point. And of course, when I speak of 70 AD, many of the Rastafari Royal Ethiopian Hebrews know exactly what I'm getting at here. And as Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor continues, he says, when the black Judean state was destroyed by the European Romans. There existed a black Israelite state in the land of Israel for about 1,200 years before the rise of Islam. And there were over 3 million black Israelites scattered throughout the Middle East, including Arabia, before the birth of the Prophet Muhammad in AD 570. Now, I remember when the brother, my great brother of the Habarim, Lidj posted one of Sanetta's videos, and it was about the debates that were going on about Kemet and the Hebrew Israelite brothers here in the States, up in New York. And like I said, I really don't pay too much attention to a lot of the debates, or at least not much as I used to. I used to pay attention to a few of them because there were a lot, and it's still a lot of knowledgeable brothers there, but I think there's just a lot of things that they miss, especially when the brother sent over a video to the Habarim, Wolde, of course, myself, and the rest of the family, Adia Sar, and the Rabbi, of course, Ras Yadinos Teferi. And we really had a reasoning on that, and I didn't think that we really did justice to, what the brother, the Commission brother, what's his name? I almost forget. The brother Polite spoke on with, when he mentioned to another brother, one that was working in the law, so to speak, or law enforcement, or he used to be a part of the law enforcement or something like that. Don't quote me on exactly what his former occupation was, but he spoke on, what it is, or what does Judah mean, and I had to, I knew it then when he said it, because it was just kind of out of context about what he said. And he mentioned that Yehuda means many tribes, and anybody who's really diligent in their studies, completely, that off the top you would say that that's incorrect, and just being honest. Now, I'm saying this with no malice in my heart, no forethought against the brother, but with me, and just knowing he's the scholar that he is, and I know that he studies Hebrew, at least from a Yiddish perspective, or a German Jewish perspective, I know that he has a better grounding in that, especially learning under someone like Dr. Malachi Z. York. And I know that he's proficient, in the Hebrew, at least from what I've been able to gather from his studies. But Yehuda would only refer to one tribe. The only time that Judah or Judea would be speaking of this black Hebrew Israelite state, and it really should be more so. And I'm not even, stepping over Dr. Rudolph or Windsor's work here, but it's more of a better context, because he said it's a black Judean state, right here on page 129 of the Valley of the Dry Bones. But it's more so a kingdom he's really speaking of. He's speaking of a kingdom, and it's known fact that the Hebrews were ruling their own dynasties, so to, just if you please, dynasties, if you please, during that 1,200 year period, in Palestine. Of course, there came the split with the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern region of Judea, which I really think that Brother Polite was actually speaking on. But that's not Judah as in Yehuda. No, that's a different terminology, and definitely studying from the Hebrew. That would be Judea, and that would speak more to the kingdom, which comprised many of the tribes. And it really wasn't as many as, he put together on that, because he spoke of the 10 tribes being in Judea, when really the 10 tribes were actually toward the north. There were only about 4, arguably 5 tribes that were actually part of Judea, and they would have comprised the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Simeon, and Dan. And it's very significant that Dan would actually be in that southern kingdom, or that southern black Judean state, especially knowing that the Ethiopian Jews, or the Beta Israel, were actually further to the south, or they would move eventually further to the south. And if you study more of the Jewish and the Euro-Jewish studies on the Ethiopian Jews, especially Fatlovich. I really can't call any more off the top of my head, but just thinking of him, especially because he did more of an extensive work. And, of course, Dr. Wolf Laszlo. Of course, he has to work on the Falasha anthology for the Beta Israel, or the Ethiopian Jews, and, that capacity about their history, about, their peculiar, as he would say, their peculiar language and affinity towards the Hebrew and Hebrew studies and things Jewish and Judaic, in origin. But, just to bring the point home about the black Judean state, the 10 lost tribes would have been to the north. And that would have actually comprised Ephraim, Manasseh, of course, Reuben, the tribe of Issachar, the tribe of Naphtali, Asher, and as you can see, you can get the point here about the 10 lost tribes being to the north. And it's very significant that now the state of Israel, is called a state, and it's not called a kingdom. If you're really a studier of the, as someone who really immerses yourself into the study of the Torah, the prophets, and the New Testament, of course, or the New Covenant, it really kind of comes together for you about the split in Israel and the history behind that split and the history that preceded the split, and you really kind of get a better foundation in understanding what really went on in Israel and why Israel is what it is today. And again, I say this work here, The Valley of the Dry Bones by Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor, is an outstanding scholarly work. And I just want to read a little bit more for you, and hopefully I drove that point home for you. But if you don't, really go and study, the divided kingdom of Judea and the northern kingdom of Israel, because the northern kingdom of Israel is what you see as the state of Israel today. That's what you're actually looking at when you see that. The southern kingdom of Judea, in which Judah comprised only 4 and arguably 5 tribes comprised into that kingdom, is the original and the legitimate Judah, or kingdom of Israel, in spirit and in truth. And and also it's affirmed by blood and DNA. I could go on and on about why the southern kingdom, or state, as Windsor points out here in this work, The Valley of the Dry Bones, is the legitimate kingdom. But I'll go a little bit further into this, and I'll read a little bit more for you on page 129 to 130. And it says here, in view of this fact, most Arabs do not recognize the right of the existence of an Israelite nation in Palestine. This is one of the prime reasons for the constant conflict in this part of the world. The Arabs do not want a Judean state in the Middle East. The state of Israel is not the enemy of the Arab states. The enemy of the Arab people is Russia. Now, that's another point I want to mention about Dr. Rudolph R. Windsor's book here, but he explains his point more, and I'll read on a little bit more for you as I have a little more time in this video. And time will prove this. The Israelites only want to live in their ancient home in Israel. That is all. But the Russians want to dominate the entire Arab world. The Russian invasion of Afghanistan is just the beginning. He's actually predicting that here in this statement. And reading on, the more the Arabs wage war against the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, what you're looking at now, the more obligated they are to the Russians for moral support, economic aid, and military weapons. In the